Imagine working yourself to the bone for years, sacrificing meals, sleep, and dignity just to build something of your own. Then picture standing outside your own front door on a freezing November night, your key useless in the lock, while your own family parties inside with strangers. They didn't just steal a house key, they stole years of trust, respect, and love. The music was loud, the lights were bright, and their laughter cut through the cold air like knives. They thought they'd won. They never saw what was coming next. My name is Rachel Monroe, and until that night in November, I believed family meant something. The cold wind off Lake Erie cut through my wool coat as I stood on my own porch at 11:45 p.m., staring at the warm glow spilling from my windows. My modern lakeside house, the one I'd bought with 5 years of sleepless nights and ramen dinners, was alive with music and laughter, just not mine. The key wouldn't turn. I tried again, thinking maybe the lock had frozen in the Cleveland cold. Nothing. My fingers were numb as I jiggled the handle, pressed harder, twisted left and right. The metal stayed firm, unyielding. That's when I noticed the lock cylinder looked different. New, changed. Through the frosted glass panels beside my door, I could see shadows moving, bodies swaying to music that thumped through the walls. My living room, with its carefully chosen furniture I'd saved months to buy, was packed with strangers, red Solo cups everywhere. Someone had pushed my white linen sofa against the wall. A couple was making out where I usually drank my morning coffee. I knocked, soft at first, then harder. The music drowned me out. I rang the doorbell repeatedly, my breath forming clouds in the freezing air. Finally, the door cracked open. Vanessa stood there, my cousin who'd always looked at my success like it was a personal insult. She held a glass of wine, my wine, from the bottle I'd been saving for my promotion celebration. Her lips curved into that familiar smirk, the one she'd worn since we were kids when she'd tell me I was trying too hard or acting better than everyone. Rachel. She said my name like it was a joke. What are you doing here? What am I, Vanessa? This is my house. Let me in. She laughed, actually laughed, and took a slow sip of wine. Oh, honey, there's no room left. Your mom said you were working late again anyway. Always working. Right. She gestured behind her where I could see my brother Dylan sprawled on my couch, his boots up on my glass coffee table. Maybe sleep in your car? You're good at roughing it. The door slammed in my face. The deadbolt clicked a sound that echoed in my chest like a gunshot. I stood there, frozen in more than just temperature. Through the window, I watched my mother Linda walk past, chatting animatedly with someone I didn't recognize. She was wearing the sweater I'd bought her last Christmas. My sister Marissa was pouring shots in my kitchen, using the crystal glasses my company had given me as a bonus gift. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. Stop making a scene outside. You're embarrassing yourself. We'll talk tomorrow. Embarrassing myself? At my own house. The house where I'd been paying the property taxes, the maintenance, the utilities. The house I'd opened to them for emergencies or just to relax sometimes. The house they'd somehow locked me out of. I tried calling. Mom declined. Dylan didn't answer. Marissa sent me to voicemail after one ring. The music got louder, as if they'd turned it up specifically to drown me out. A neighbor's porch light flicked on. Mrs. Patterson from next door peered out, probably wondering why I was standing outside my own home like a stranger. The humiliation burned worse than the cold. I pulled my coat tighter and walked back to my car, my heels clicking against the frozen driveway I'd had repaved just last month. Sitting in the driver's seat, heat finally warming my fingers. I watched my house, my accomplishment. My pride lit up like it belonged to someone else. Shadows danced behind curtains I'd hung. Music poured from windows I'd caulked myself to save money on heating bills. That's when I saw it clearly for the first time. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a party that got out of hand. They'd changed my locks. They'd planned this. My family had deliberately intentionally locked me out of my own home. The rage that filled me wasn't hot. It was ice cold, clear, and precise, like the lake in winter, still on the surface but powerful underneath. I started my car, but I didn't leave. Not yet. I wanted to remember this feeling, this exact moment when I realized that blood meant nothing if it came with betrayal. They thought they'd won something tonight, but as I sat in my car, watching them celebrate in my house with my things, I made a promise to myself. They had no idea what they'd just started. No idea at all, 6 years ago. I lived in a studio apartment with a broken heater and a refrigerator that hummed so loud it kept me awake. Not that I slept much anyway between my day job at the call center, night shifts at the diner, and online coding classes. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. I remember the exact moment I realized I'd made it standing in Kroger, adding items to my cart without calculating the total in my head, without checking my bank balance, without putting anything back. That first good paycheck from my software developer job should have been mine to celebrate. Instead, I called my mother. "Mom, I can finally help out," I'd said, the pride in my voice embarrassing to remember now. She cried on the phone, told me I was a good daughter. The next day, I set up automatic transfers, $800 for her utilities and groceries, $500 to Dylan for his rent, $300 to help Marissa with her certification courses that she never seemed to finish. Every month, thousands of dollars flowed from my account to theirs. What started as temporary help became permanent expectation. "Rachel won't mind," became their refrain. "She makes good money now." As if my success was their lottery ticket. I still drove the same beat-up Honda while they upgraded their cars. I packed lunches while they ate out on my dime. When coworkers asked why I lived so modestly despite my salary, I'd smile and change the subject. Family helps family, right? The house changed everything. I'd saved for 3 years, denying myself vacations, new clothes, nights out. When I finally had enough for the down payment, I chose carefully a modern colonial on Lake Erie's shore, far enough from downtown for peace, but close enough to commute. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a deck overlooking the water. The inspection showed it needed work, but I didn't care. It was mine. "Must be nice," Marissa had said at the housewarming, running her fingers along my granite countertops with barely concealed envy. "Some of us actually struggle, you know." I'd bitten my tongue. Didn't remind her about the $30,000 I'd given her over the years. Didn't mention the coding boot camp I'd offered to pay for that she'd declined because it seemed hard. Dylan had been worse. "Pretty big for just one person," he'd observed, sprawled in my new living room. "Seems selfish, actually. All this space." This from a man who hadn't held a job for more than 3 months straight, who'd been evicted twice before I started covering his rent. But it was my mother who delivered the killing blow with a smile. "Well, at least we'll all have somewhere nice to gather now. Family should share their blessings. Rachel, you didn't get here alone." "Didn't I?" Who sat with me through those late-night study sessions, who worked doubles until their feet bled, who ate peanut butter sandwiches for dinner for months to afford the certification exams. When I was debugging code at 3 a.m., where was this family that deserved to share my blessings? Still, I gave her a key. "For emergencies," I'd said, within a month. Emergencies meant Sunday dinners I hadn't planned for, then random Tuesday afternoons when Linda wanted to enjoy the lake view, then Marissa throwing a baby shower for a friend in my house, without asking. "Don't be selfish, Rachel," my mother would say whenever I protested. "We're family. This is what family does." But I knew what family was supposed to do. Family was supposed to celebrate your victories, not resent them. Family was supposed to be proud when you succeeded, not entitled to your success. Family was supposed to support you, not drain you dry while demanding more. I thought about all of this as I finally drove away from my house that night, leaving them to their party. I checked into a hotel, a nice one, because I could afford it, because I'd earned it. Lying in the king-sized bed, I pulled up my banking app. The automatic transfers were still there, scheduled for the 1st of next month. $5,000 total, every month, for 3 years running. $180,000. That's what my blessings had cost me, not counting the groceries I'd bought, the dinners I'd paid for, the loans never repaid. I'd funded their lives while they resented mine. I opened my laptop and started documenting everything, every transfer, every payment, every receipt I'd saved. The email where Dylan asked for just 1 more month of rent help 2 years ago. Marissa's text thanking me for the 15th certification course that she'd never complete. My mother's casual request for a new refrigerator because you know we can't afford it and you have so much. They thought they owned me, thought my success belonged to them by birthright. Tomorrow, they'd learn differently. But tonight, I sat in my hotel room, finally understanding the price of my generosity. It had cost me more than money. It had nearly cost me myself. The first sign should have been when my mother asked for the spare key. "Just in case something happens to you," she'd said, her voice syrupy sweet over the phone. "You work such long hours, honey. What if there's an emergency?" I'd given it to her wrapped in a little velvet pouch, thinking I was being a good daughter. Within a week, I came home to find dishes in my sink that I hadn't used, a window cracked open that I knew I'd locked, the faint smell of Gary's cigarettes lingering in my bathroom, though he swore he'd quit. "Oh, we just stopped by to check on things," Linda explained when I called. "You weren't home. We didn't think you'd mind." I did mind, but saying so made me difficult and changed by money. The violations escalated slowly, like boiling a frog. First, it was borrowing my good china for Marissa's book club, the china I found later chipped and hastily glued. Then Dylan started listing my address on job applications without asking, mail appearing for him daily. Gary fixed himself sandwiches in my kitchen during his lunch breaks because I was closer to his work than home. The weekend I flew to Seattle for a tech conference. I came back to disaster. Burn marks on my dining table from cigarettes. Red wine stains on my cream carpet. My neighbor mentioned the lovely party my family had thrown. 3 days I'd been gone. 3 days. And they'd treated my home like a frat house. "We cleaned up," Marissa said defensively when I confronted them. "God, Rachel, you act like we trashed the place." But they had. Not just physically, they'd trashed my sense of security. My sanctuary. I found strangers' numbers written on my bathroom mirror in lipstick. Someone had gone through my closet. My clothes were rehung wrong, some missing. My jewelry box had been reorganized, and my grandmother's pearl earrings were gone. "Must have misplaced them," my mother said, not meeting my eyes. I changed the locks that week, told them I'd lost my keys, needed new ones for security. The locksmith installed a high-grade deadbolt, and I felt safe again, for exactly 4 days. Then Linda called. "Your new locks are installed. We saw the locksmith leaving." My stomach dropped. Were you watching my house?" "Don't be dramatic. Gary drove by on his way to work. Anyway, we'll need copies of the new keys." "No." The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. "Excuse me." I said no. "Mom, it's my house. I need some privacy." She laughed, but it wasn't warm. "Privacy from your family. Rachel, what are you hiding? Are you doing something you're ashamed of?" The manipulation was textbook, but it still worked. Guilt flooded me. Was I being unreasonable? Was this what success did made you suspicious of your own mother? "Fine," she said when I didn't respond. "Keep your privacy, but don't come crying to me when you're locked out one day." The irony of that statement would have been funny if it wasn't so twisted. 2 weeks later, I found them all in my living room at 7 p.m. on a Friday. I'd worked late, grabbed takeout, and walked into my own home to find them watching my TV, drinking my wine, acting like I was the intruder. How was all I managed? Linda held up a key, shiny, new, clearly copied. "I already made one, just in case. A mother worries. Rachel." "That's illegal. You can't just copy someone's keys without permission." "Illegal." Dylan laughed from the couch. Calling the cops on your family now. Real nice. Sis. They'd ordered pizza on my credit card, the one I kept in my desk drawer for emergencies. $60 for food I didn't eat while they made themselves comfortable in my space. When I asked them to leave, they took their time. 40 minutes of finishing this show and let me grab one more drink and Rachel's being weird again. After they left, I found the receipt from the key copy place. They'd made 4 copies. 4. One for each of them, like my home was community property. I installed a security system the next day. Cameras, motion sensors, the works. Changed the locks again this time to smart locks with codes I could change remotely. When they complained, I blamed it on my insurance company. New requirements. I lied. For coverage. But I knew this was just the beginning. They'd shown me who they were, people who believed my boundaries were suggestions. My property was theirs. My success was their right. The cameras would catch them next time. And there would be a next time. People like them, who felt entitled to what others earned, always pushed until they pushed too far. I started sleeping poorly, wondering when I'd come home to another surprise. My own family had become intruders I needed to defend against. The sanctuary I'd worked so hard to create had become a fortress under siege. The sad part, I still sent them money every month, still paid their bills, still loved them. Even as I realized they didn't love me, they loved what I could provide. And that kind of love always demands more than you can give. That night in my car changed everything. Sitting there in the cold, watching strangers party in my house while my family laughed at my exile, something inside me crystallized into diamond-hard resolve. I drove to the hotel, but I didn't sleep. Instead, I opened my laptop and began dismantling 3 years of financial enabling. First, the automatic transfers. My hands didn't shake as I canceled every single one. $800 to Linda gone, $500 to Dylan terminated, $300 to Marissa deleted. The recurring payment for Gary's truck insurance canceled. The subscription services I paid for that, they used all of them, ended effective immediately. Next, I removed them as authorized users from my credit cards, changed my Amazon password so they couldn't order things on my Prime account, removed my payment method from the food delivery apps on their phones that I'd foolishly linked to my card. By 3 a.m., I'd cut every financial tie. The silence in my hotel room felt sacred, like I'd finally stopped screaming into a void that only demanded more. At 6 a.m., I called a locksmith, not the local one they'd used, but a specialist from downtown. I need everything changed today. New locks, new deadbolts, smart locks with cameras built in, the works. That's going to be expensive on a Saturday. Emergency rates. I don't care what it costs. By noon, my house was a fortress. The locksmith, a man named Jerome who'd seen enough to understand without asking, installed locks that would alert my phone if anyone even attempted to use an unauthorized key. He added window locks, a new garage door code, even a lock on my electrical box after I explained the situation. Had a cousin go through something similar, he said, testing the 5th lock. Family thinks success means you owe them. Stay strong. The security company arrived next, cameras covering every angle, motion sensors, glass break detectors, and a panic button that would immediately summon police. The technician synced everything to my phone. I could now see my entire property from anywhere, any time. You want the signs out front? He asked. The ones that say you have security. Yes, make them visible. I wanted them to know, wanted them to see that things had changed. By evening, my phone exploded with notifications. The first was Dylan at 2:15 p.m. His card declined at a gas station. Then Marissa at 4:30 p.m., unable to pay for her yoga class. Linda called 17 times between 5 and 7 p.m., each voicemail more frantic than the last. Rachel, there must be some mistake with the bank. Honey, call me back. The utility payment didn't go through. This is ridiculous. You're being childish. Answer your phone right now. I didn't answer. Instead, I watched through my new cameras as they arrived at my house at 8:45 p.m. All of them, even Vanessa, approaching my door like they owned it. Linda tried her key first. The smart lock flashed red, and my phone chimed with an alert, "Unauthorized access attempted." She tried again. Harder. Angrier. Dylan pushed her aside and jammed his key in. Another red flash. Another alert. I watched them argue on my porch, their voices rising. Gary tried to peer through the windows, but I'd drawn all the curtains. Marissa spotted the camera and waved at it.
"Rachel, we know you're watching. Open the door."
I wasn't even there. I was still at the hotel, eating room service salmon and watching them on my phone like it was a reality show about entitled people facing consequences. They stayed for an hour. Linda tried calling the locksmith. I heard her through the camera's audio asking about fixing a mistake with the locks. The locksmith, bless him, said he couldn't discuss his client's services. Dylan kicked my doorframe, not hard enough to damage it, but hard enough to show his fury. The motion sensor alert made me save that video clip. Finally, they left. But not before Linda looked directly into the camera and said, "You're going to regret this, Rachel. Family doesn't forget." She was right about one thing family doesn't forget. I hadn't forgotten the years of sacrifice, the dismissive comments, the entitlement, the final humiliation of being locked out of my own home. I hadn't forgotten, and I wasn't going to anymore. I typed out one text message and sent it to all of them. "The locks have been changed. The financial support has ended. You locked me out of my own home and laughed about it. You made your choice. Now, live with it." Then I blocked their numbers, all of them. The hotel room felt like a cocoon that night. Tomorrow, I'd go home to my house, my clean, empty, secure house. But tonight, I sat in the king-sized bed with my laptop, looking at my bank balance without the weight of their expectations. For the first time in 3 years, my money was mine. The price of their betrayal would be everything they'd taken for granted, and despite what they thought, I wasn't the one who would regret this. The hardest lesson they'd ever learn was about to begin what life looked like without Rachel Monroe's charity. The alert came at 2:17 a.m. on a Wednesday, 5 days after I'd changed the locks. My phone lit up beside my bed, the security app pulsing red, multiple motion sensors triggered, glass break detector activated. My heart hammered as I opened the live feed. They were all there, dark figures in my backyard. Dylan was holding something a patio chair approaching my sliding glass door. Gary stood watch while Linda and Marissa huddled near the deck. Even in the infrared camera, I could see their determination. They'd come to take back what they thought was theirs. I watched Dylan raise the chair. My finger hovered over the emergency call button on the app. Part of me, the part that still remembered birthday parties and Christmas mornings, hesitated. Then Dylan swung. The glass exploded inward, the sound sharp even through my phone's speaker. The alarm shrieked immediately, piercing the night. My security company's voice crackled through the outdoor speakers I'd had installed. "Police have been notified. You are being recorded." But they didn't run. Instead, they moved faster. Dylan cleared the remaining glass with the chair and stepped through. Gary followed, then helped Linda climb in. Marissa hesitated at the threshold until Linda snapped something at her, and she scrambled inside. I hit record on everything while simultaneously dialing 911 on my second phone.
911, what's your emergency?
This is Rachel Monroe at 4712 Lakeshore Drive. 4 people are currently breaking into my home. I'm watching them on my security cameras.
Are you in the home, ma'am?
No, I'm at a safe location, but I can see them inside. They're my family. My mother, Linda Monroe, my brother, Dylan Monroe, my sister, Marissa Monroe, and Gary Reynolds. Your family is breaking into your home? Yes. I recently changed the locks after they locked me out of my own house. They don't have permission to be there. They broke my sliding glass door to get in. Officers are en route. Can you stay on the line? I watched them spread through my house like locusts. Dylan went straight to my office, rifling through drawers, looking for what cash checkbooks Gary was in my kitchen, actually making himself a sandwich. Marissa had found my wine rack and was selecting a bottle like she was shopping. But it was Linda who broke my heart and sealed their fate. She was in my bedroom, going through my jewelry box, pocketing pieces. "They're stealing from me," I told the dispatcher, my voice steady despite my rage. "I'm recording everything." The sirens came quickly, the benefit of living in a good neighborhood. Red and blue lights flooded my camera feeds. I watched my family freeze like deer in headlights. Dylan dropped whatever he was holding. The wine bottle slipped from Marissa's hands, shattering on my hardwood floor. They tried to run, scrambling toward the broken door, but the police were already there. The cameras caught it all, officers with drawn weapons ordering them to the ground. Dylan fighting, trying to explain they were family. This was a misunderstanding. Gary raising his hands immediately. Sandwich still in one. Marissa crying, mascara streaming. And Linda, my mother, looking directly at one of my cameras with pure hatred before the officers cuffed her.
"Ma'am, are you still there?"
the dispatcher asked.
"Yes, they're in custody."
"An officer will need your statement. Can you come to the scene?"
"I'll be there in 20 minutes.
I dressed carefully professional blazer, nice jeans, the kind of outfit that said responsible homeowner rather than emotional daughter. The drive felt surreal, like I was heading to someone else's disaster. The scene was chaos. 3 patrol cars, lights still flashing, neighbors standing on their lawns in robes and slippers. Mrs. Patterson caught my eye and shook her head sadly. She'd seen them lock me out that night. Officer Daniels, according to his badge, took my statement while my family sat in separate patrol cars. I showed him the footage on my phone, the break-in, but also the night they'd locked me out. Dylan kicking my door. Their repeated attempts with unauthorized keys. "They changed my locks first," I explained. "Made copies without permission. I have the receipt they left behind." I'd brought it with me, along with printed screenshots of their messages demanding money, calling me selfish, threatening to take what was theirs.
"Do you want to press charges?" Officer Daniels asked.
Through the patrol car window, I could see Linda staring at me. Even from that distance, I could feel her fury, her disbelief that I would dare hold them accountable, that I would choose justice over blood.
"Yes," I said, loud enough for them to hear. "Breaking and entering, destruction of property, theft, trespassing, whatever applies." "It's your family," Officer Daniels said quietly.
Not judgmental, just confirming.
"You're sure?"
They stopped being family when they broke into my home. As the patrol cars pulled away, taking them to the station for processing, I stood in my destroyed doorway. Glass crunched under my feet. My house smelled like strangers and entitlement, but it was still mine. Jerome, the locksmith, arrived within an hour. I'd called him before leaving the hotel. He boarded up the door, promised to return first thing in the morning with reinforced glass. The security company sent someone to verify all systems were still recording. I had enough evidence to bury them. By dawn, I was sitting in my violated living room, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise over Lake Erie. My phone was silent, they couldn't call from jail, and I'd blocked everyone else who might plead their case. They'd wanted into my house so badly they'd committed a felony for it. Now they'd learned that some doors, once closed, never open again. The police station at 7 a.m. smelled like burnt coffee and disappointment. I sat in the waiting area. My lawyer beside me, Catherine Chin, recommended by my company's legal department, sharp as glass and twice as cutting. She'd reviewed my security footage on the drive over, her expression growing more incredulous with each video. "They really thought they'd get away with this?" she'd asked. "They thought I'd cave? I always have before." Detective Morrison called us into an interview room. Through the one-way glass, I could see into the holding area where my family waited for processing. They looked smaller somehow, diminished by fluorescent lights and the reality of consequences.
"They want to talk to you," Detective Morrison said, "before we formally book them."
"Absolutely not," Catherine interjected.
"I want to hear what they have to say,"
I said.
One last time.
Catherine frowned but nodded.
I'm staying with you. Don't agree to anything.
They brought them into the interview room one by one. Dylan came first, still in yesterday's clothes, reeking of desperation and the holding cell. Rachel, come on. He started immediately. This is insane. We're family. You're seriously going to let me have a record over this?
You broke into my house.
It's not breaking in. We've been coming there for years.
Without permission. After I changed the locks, through a window you shattered.
He leaned forward, trying for intimidation.
You owe us. Everything you have, you got because we supported you.
When? I cut him off. When did you support me? When I was working 3 jobs. When I was teaching myself to code at 2 When I couldn't afford heat in January. Where was this support?
His face reddened. You got lucky with that tech job. Pure luck. And instead of sharing that luck with family, you hoard it like some dragon. I gave you $60,000 over 3 years.
He blinked, clearly not expecting me to have calculated it. $60,000 in rent money alone? Dylan, not 1 penny repaid. Not 1 thank you. Just demands for more.
You can afford it.
Get out! Marissa came next, tears already flowing. The manipulation started before she even sat down. Rachel, please, I'm pregnant. I stared at her. Catherine shifted beside me. No, you're not.
I am 2 months. I can't go to jail pregnant.
Think about your niece or nephew.
Show me the test.
Her tears stopped suspiciously fast. I don't have it with me.
Marissa, you tried this lie 6 months ago when I wouldn't pay for your Vegas trip.
Did you forget? She switched tactics, anger replacing tears. You've changed. Money made you cruel. The sister I knew would never...
The sister you knew was a doormat. She's dead. You killed her when you helped lock me out of my own house.
Gary was brief. He sat down, looked at me with those cold eyes that had always made me uncomfortable, and said, Your mother's right. You're not really family. Real family doesn't do this. Real family doesn't break into each other's homes. Gary, real family doesn't steal. We took what you owed us.
I owe you nothing.
We'll see what the rest of the family thinks about that. I don't care what they think. And I realized with stunning clarity that I meant it. Linda came last. My mother, the woman who'd raised me, who'd taught me to tie my shoes and braid my hair, who'd also taught me that love was conditional and respect was optional if you shared DNA. She sat across from me, her composure intact despite the handcuffs.
You're really going to do this? Send your mother to jail?
You're really asking me that after breaking into my home? It should have been our home. Rachel, a real daughter would have shared her success, would have bought a house for the whole family. Instead, you left us struggling while you lived like a queen.
I paid your bills, every month. I kept roofs over your heads.
Crumbs, she spat. Crumbs from your table while you feast. You think you're better than us. No, Mom, I think I'm done being used by you. She leaned back, studied me with those calculating eyes. You'll regret this. When you're alone, when you need us. We won't be there. You were never there. You were just there for my wallet. If you do this, she said slowly,
you're no daughter of mine.
The words should have hurt, should have shattered me. Instead, they freed me. Good, then we're finally being honest. I stood to leave, Catherine beside me. At the door, I turned back one last time. The charges stand, all of them, and Mom. That family heirloom ring you took from my jewelry box, great-grandmother's ring, the officers found it in your pocket. That's grand theft. Enjoy explaining that to the judge. Her face went white. She'd forgotten about the cameras in my bedroom, forgotten that I'd seen everything. Rachel, but I was already gone, walking out into the morning sun with Catherine, leaving them to face the system they'd forced me to engage. They'd wanted to take everything from me. Instead, They'd given me something precious, freedom from the obligation to love people who'd never really loved me back.
"You okay?" Catherine asked as we reached her car.
"I will be," I said, and meant it. For the first time in years, I will be. 3 months later, the consequences had ravaged their lives like a wildfire through dry brush. I heard about it in pieces through Mrs. Patterson, through social media posts from distant relatives, through the occasional public record I checked. Not because I cared, but because I needed to know they weren't coming back. Dylan was the first to fall completely. Without my monthly $500, he lasted exactly 2 weeks before his landlord filed for eviction. He'd tried to fight it, claiming hardship, but the judge wasn't sympathetic to someone with a pending B&E charge. He moved into his car, then couch-surfed until his friends got tired of his entitlement. Last I heard, he was working night shifts at a warehouse 40 minutes outside Cleveland, living in a room he rented from a stranger on Craigslist. His Instagram, once full of parties and concerts funded by my money, went dark. Marissa had to move back into Linda and Gary's cramped apartment, the ultimate humiliation for someone who'd spent 3 years telling everyone she was building her empire. Her fake certification courses were exposed when she couldn't produce a single certificate for her resume. The yoga studio where she'd been a regular banned her when her membership payment bounced for the 3rd time. She got a job at Target, then lost it within a month for arguing with her supervisor about respect. Now she worked at a call center, the same kind of job I'd done years ago. The job she'd mocked me for. Gary's truck got repossessed first. Without my payment covering his insurance, he'd let it lapse, then couldn't afford to reinstate it. He took extra shifts at the factory, coming home exhausted and bitter. Linda had to get a job for the first time in 5 years, stocking shelves at midnight at a grocery store, wearing an ugly vest, her back aching from bending. She'd run into my coworker there once, and the humiliation on her face had been described to me in vivid detail. Their apartment, the one I'd been supplementing, was their next loss. $800 a month made the difference between barely surviving and drowning. They downgraded to a 2-bedroom in a rough part of town, bars on the windows, walls thin enough to hear every argument. And they argued constantly now about money, about blame, about whose fault it was that I'd abandoned them. The legal bills crushed them completely. They'd pooled money for a lawyer, but could only afford a public defender when that ran out. The breaking and entering charges stuck. The destruction of property was undeniable. I had the invoices for the $7,000 sliding door replacement. The theft charges for the jewelry sealed it. They got probation and community service, except for Linda. Great-grandmother's ring had been worth $12,000. I'd had it appraised for insurance. That pushed her crime into felony territory. 6 months in county jail, 2 years probation. The family matriarch, the woman who'd preached about dignity and respect, got processed into the system like any other criminal. The extended family took sides, most of them against me initially. "How could you do this to your mother?" they asked. Until I sent them the security footage, the video of them breaking in, of Linda stealing jewelry, of Dylan destroying property. One by one, they went quiet. Cousin Vanessa, who'd smirked as she locked me out, tried to reach out once she needed a loan. I didn't even respond. The social fallout was delicious in its thoroughness. Their church friends whispered. Their neighbors knew. Linda's book club expelled her. Gary's drinking buddies distanced themselves. They became cautionary tales, the family who'd gotten too greedy and lost everything. I ran into Dylan once, at a gas station 6 months after the arrest. He was pumping gas into a beat-up sedan, his warehouse uniform stained with sweat. He saw me pull up in my Tesla Yes. I'd upgraded, because I could, because my money was finally mine. Our eyes met across the pumps. "Rachel," he called out. I looked through him like he was glass, finished charging, and drove away. In my rear-view mirror, I saw him standing there, shoulders slumped, watching the life he could have had disappear. Marissa sent one email that made it past my filters. "Mom's in jail because of you. We're suffering because of you. I hope you're happy." I was not happy at their suffering specifically, but happy at my freedom, happy that my bank account grew instead of drained, happy that my house was peaceful, unviolated, mine, happy that I could buy things without calculating how much my family would demand, happy that love wasn't measured in dollar signs anymore. The last I heard, Linda was released early for good behavior but couldn't find work with a felony record. She cleaned offices at night, the same buildings where executives like me worked during the day. The irony was perfect. She'd wanted so badly to live my life that she'd destroyed her own trying to take it. They learned what I'd learned long ago. Nobody owes you anything. Not even family. Especially not family that treats you like an ATM with a heartbeat. They'd thought they were entitled to my success because we shared blood. Now they shared something else, the knowledge that actions have consequences. And some bridges, once burned, light the way forward for the person walking away. 1 year after the break-in, they made their final attempt. I was in my office downtown, corner suite now I'd been promoted twice since cutting them off. Funny how success comes easier when you're not carrying dead weight. My assistant knocked, looking uncomfortable. Ms. Monroe, there's a group in the lobby claiming to be your family. Security is holding them. I pulled up the lobby camera on my computer. There they were, all 4 of them, dressed in their best attempt at respectability. Linda had aged 5 years in one, her hair gray at the roots, her felony conviction written in the slump of her shoulders. Dylan wore an ill-fitting suit that screamed borrowed. Marissa had lost her designer knockoff style, replaced by discount store basics. Gary stood apart slightly, like he was already regretting coming. Should I have security remove them? My assistant asked. No, send them up, but call security to stand by. They filed into my office like defendants approaching a judge. The floor-to-ceiling windows behind me showcased Cleveland's skyline, the kind of view they'd never have. I didn't offer them seats. Rachel, Linda started, her voice missing its old authority. We need to talk. No, you need to talk. I'm just curious enough to listen. You have 5 minutes. They exchanged glances. Finally, Dylan stepped forward. We're struggling. I'm aware. We wanted to apologize, Marissa added quickly, for everything. The break-in, the locks, the years of financial abuse, the emotional manipulation, the entitlement, the theft. Which part specifically? Linda's jaw tightened, even humbled. She couldn't fully submit. We're family, Rachel. We made mistakes. But family forgives. Family doesn't break into each other's homes. You're right, Gary said suddenly. Everyone looked at him in surprise. We were wrong, all of it. The money, the house, the way we treated you. Wrong. It was the closest thing to a real apology I'd heard, but it didn't matter. What do you want? I asked bluntly. Just help, Dylan admitted. Not money. Maybe you could give us references for jobs or co-sign a lease, something to get us back on our feet. No? The word hung in the air like a blade. No, Linda's voice cracked. Not even a reference. You broke into my home. You have criminal records because of your own choices. You spent years taking from me while giving nothing back but criticism and entitlement. Why would I risk my reputation for people who locked me out of my own house and laughed about it? That was Vanessa who laughed. Marissa started. And you all let her. You all participated. You all chose to treat me like a resource instead of a person. I stood, walking to the window, my back to them. The lake stretched out below, the same lake I watched from my violated house that night. Do you know what you actually taught me? I asked. You taught me that blood means nothing without respect. That family isn't about DNA, it's about who shows up for you, not who shows up for your wallet. You taught me that sometimes the most toxic people in your life share your last name. I turned back to face them, really looking at them for the last time. You taught me that I was never really family to you. I was an investment that you thought would pay dividends forever. But here's what you never understood: investments require maintenance. Relationships require reciprocity. Love requires respect. You offered none of those things. Linda's eyes filled with tears, real ones this time.
So that's it. You're just done with us. You were done with me the moment you changed my locks. I'm just returning the favor. Permanently. You'll regret this,
Dylan said, but there was no heat in it, just hollow resignation. When you're old and alone, I'll be old and at peace, without users, without manipulation, without people who see my success as their birthright. I'll take that over your version of family any day. I pressed the button for security. Please escort them out. If they return, call the police. As security arrived, Linda made one last attempt. Rachel, please, we have nothing.
You have exactly what you gave me all those years I was struggling nothing. Seems fair to me.
They were led out, their footsteps fading down the hallway. I watched from my window as they emerged onto the street below, 4 small figures dispersing in different directions. They didn't even leave together. The family unit they'd claimed was so precious had shattered completely without my money to hold it together. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, probably one of them using someone else's phone. I deleted it unread and blocked the number. Some messages don't deserve to be heard. That night, I had dinner with friends, real friends, who celebrated my promotion, who'd been there during the court hearings, who knew my worth had nothing to do with my bank account. We laughed, we toasted. We made plans for a vacation I could finally afford without calculating how much my family would demand as their share. The house by the lake was peaceful now. The new sliding door was stronger than the original. The locks were state-of-the-art. But the best security feature wasn't something you could buy. It was the knowledge that the people who'd once made me feel unsafe in my own home would never have that power again. They thought they'd lost everything when I cut them off. They were wrong. They'd lost everything when they decided I was worth more as a bank account than as a daughter, a sister, a person. I just made it official. Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you family. And sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is to stop watering dead plants, no matter who planted them in your garden. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm curious, where are you listening from? Please comment below and let me know what country or city you're in. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts about what you would have done in my situation. Your support means everything, and I love reading your perspectives from around the world.